Well, the January 6th Select Committee says former President Trump should be barred from ever holding office again. The recommendation comes as part of its final report, which came out late last night. The committee has already referred Trump to the Justice Department for at least 4 criminal charges, while claiming it also has evidence of possible charges of seditious conspiracy and conspiring to injure or impede an officer. All right, of course, this latest report comes on the heels of the House Democrat earlier this week approving the unprecedented release of Trump's tax returns. For more on this, let's welcome in one of the top legal minds in the country, Harvard Law School Professor Emeritus and Newsmax analyst, Alan Dershowitz. Professor, always good to see you. Happy Hanukkah to you, sir. I do want to get, the timing of this report is very interesting. It came out last night around 10 p.m., 800 pages long. I mean, everyone is leaving D.C. at this point. It's Christmas Eve tomorrow. It's Hanukkah. Everyone was focused on this omnibus that President Biden just signed into law. Is there something about the timing, and why are they trying to be hiding it? Everyone's pretty much out all next week. Does the timing indicate anything to you besides the fact they try to get it done before the new Congress?
I think it's a recognition that the report is worthless. You can't have a report that's better than the people who wrote it. And here you have a hand-selected, all selected by the Democratic Leadership Committee that gave no opportunity to hear adverse information, cross-examine witnesses. And what we see in this report, from what I've read, is a massive, massive violation of separation of powers under the Constitution. The Constitution provides explicitly that Congress only has the power to legislate, not to prosecute, not to disqualify people from running for office, not to release tax returns. That's not within the power of Congress. When Alexander Hamilton opposed the Bill of Rights, he said we don't need a Bill of Rights because Congress is a limited power. They can't do things like suppress free speech. They can't do things that would now violate, say, the Second or the Fourth Amendment. They're a limited power. And this Congress has taken unlimited power and gone well beyond its jurisdiction.
Okay, so the committee has done a great job of crafting a narrative. Ultimately, we've seen, they've done a lot of their hearings in prime time. I've made much of them. The media has covered them extensively, but they're not a court of law, as we've talked to you about many times. Do they have enough burden of proof? Do they have enough for Attorney Merrick Garland to take this up?
Garland is going to ignore this completely. He'll write them a polite letter saying thank you, but he has his own special prosecutor. They have investigative resources. The Bill of Attainder clause of the Constitution specifically prohibits Congress from pointing to individuals and indicating that they're the ones who are guilty of crime. The 14th Amendment provides a very narrow exception for people who engaged in the Civil War. They can be disqualified from holding office. The best proof that the 14th Amendment was referring only to the Civil War was because the very 14th Amendment refers to the loss of compensation of any slave. It was an amendment based on the end of slavery, 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, to try to make that applicable generally to protests that you don't like occurring 150 or so years later makes no sense at all and violates the spirit and I think the words of the Constitution itself. So this Democratic Congress has done some terrible things to the Constitution, and I worry that it will create a precedent for the next incoming Republican majority. Because, when you start revealing the tax returns of Donald Trump, if I were Hunter Biden, I'd be very nervous about my tax returns. And ultimately, you and me should be nervous about our tax returns. We have nothing to hide, but we don't want the government to be able to release who we gave charitable contributions to, what our medical problems were. These are issues that are supposed to be secret under the statutes, and yet Congress has now taken over the power to release them to the public without there being any legislative purpose at all.
Yeah, it does seem like they're out to get him at this point. You know, obviously we know that President Trump has announced that he's running again. So what is the timeline here for Merrick Garland? As you mentioned, we already know that he has a special counsel for another investigation out against him. This select committee is trying to ensure that he will be unqualified to be president again. So what kind of timeline is the DOJ up against, and will they kind of take that in consideration that he's running for president?
Well, they have to. If a person is running for president against the incumbent, against the person who appointed the attorney general, you darn well better have a smoking gun. You better have overwhelming proof that would get Republicans and Democrats to join in wanting to prosecute him. Otherwise, if it's a partisan prosecution, it's a banana republic. You can't just start indicting people who are running against the current president based on weak cases and speculation and a range of other factors that don't amount to a prosecutable offense. And so I think the timeline is now, because if he is indicted, which I don't think he will be, he should surely have the time to be acquitted by a jury before the time he runs for president. And once you get into the last year of the presidency, there really won't be time for that to happen. And what happened to Hillary Clinton on the eve of her election could happen to him as well. Namely, the head of the FBI announces that although we're not going to indict, there's evidence that she did bad things. And that may very well have affected the outcome of that election. We don't want to see these kinds of things affect the outcome of elections. There are Justice Department policies against it, and they're very important policies, particularly when you have a man running against the incumbent president.
Absolutely. And, you know, talking about the precedent that this creates as well, Professor Alan Dershowitz, so much more to discuss as we see what Attorney General Merrick Garland does with this, if he takes it up or not. Always love getting your insight. Again, thanks for being here with us during this holiday season. Happy Hanukkah again to you.
Holidays to everybody. Thank you.